This video here is for it's like an introduction to mind palaces and memory systems, and I'll be following along with a post I made a while ago. So it was called Mom's Tutorial. I'll make this full screen. Okay, so it says simple step-by-step guide. If you follow this, you will be able to use mind palaces quite effectively. I'm going to go through this and give my own comments because I think there's some things that I neglected to mention or into more detail with using this video format. So the first thing I say is that it's not actually that simple when reading it. It's a lot more easier to teach if I'm on a call or if I'm in real life because it's interactive. I can point to places in real life and be like, put the thing there. But essentially, a mind palace is a way of storing linear data. You want to store a list of things. And it doesn't actually have to be a list. There are ways you can store like multi-dimensional data. Like the periodic table is multi-dimensional, that's 2D. But generally, you have to kind of squeeze things into linear data or make associations linking between them. But a mind palace, at the end of the day, all it is a location. You will preferably have a lot of small mind palaces. You need at least 3 temporary ones to do anything, because you need to switch between them. You don't want to keep reusing the same one over and over again. You'll get very confused. And you need usually a few more permanent ones. So I have 5 temporary ones, which are places I've lived. And if someone just showed me a list of items and said, memorize these things, I'll be using the temporary ones. And I'll be overwriting old data in there. Now, if I wanted to memorize something that was going to be longer term, like the periodic table, or digits of pi, or digits of e, or people's names or birthdays, I'll choose a place that's empty at the moment. I think I still have some space left in my college, so I'll probably go to the empty bit of my college and start putting information into there. And that is one that I review maybe once a month. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's get started. So I recommend first learning something where you kind of make your memory system on the fly. So Russia on its own is a hard thing to remember, but you can make an image for it, like a Russian hat. So that Russian hat, when you see it, it reminds you of Russia. And what I say to do here is you have a mind palace. So here I give an example, but you could use anything. And you take 2 of these, you turn them into images, and you put them into each location. You can have more than 2. You can basically have 1, 2, or 3 in a loci. 1 is fine, it's very memorable, very quick to put it in there. The downside is it's going to take up so much space. 2 is ideal for me, I think. It's a good compromise in speed and space. 3 I will do if it's a long-term mind palace, like my periodic table groups the elements into 3s. But if it's something short-term, like a deck of cards or whatever, I'm going to use 2 items per loci. And when I say like 2 items per loci, those items could be a memory system of many things. Like my memory system is 3 digits. So I'll actually show this real quick. So I can go into my memory system. And I'm just going to, this is my 3-digit system. So every 3-digit number has an image. Rather than memorizing 927, I'm going to memorize Lestrade. And because of that, 1 loci for me holds 6 digits, sometimes 3. So with phone numbers, I tend to put 3 in one go, but generally it would be 2. So yeah, I give this example because it's kind of a decent amount of information, but really it shouldn't take you more than an hour first time. And if you are, even after a week of doing mind palace stuff, if you come back, this won't take you more than 10 minutes, especially if you already have the images for them. So I think this is a very good example to show how quick you can get. If this was just a list of objects like apple, banana, bin, pan, ghost, if it's just a list of those things, immediately you could probably do it in under 10 minutes. Probably as they were being called out. That sounds insane, but unlike most skills, mind palaces we are naturally good at. Even if you have aphantasia and can't visualize, I make a note about that somewhere here. Even if it's aphantasia and you can't visualize, conceptually you can use them. Like the concept of milk being in the fridge. You can conceptually walk through your house. I do say here, don't make them up. You can actually. That's just an advanced technique. And you can even make them up on the fly in effectively like infinite space. I wouldn't really recommend that. It can get very confusing because they need to be consistent and they need to all be different and memorable. But you can do that. Any other things in here I want to contradict? Let's have a look. Yeah, being quick is where the fun is with mind palaces. You want to memorize information quick. It stops you from getting bored. It's more impressive. Go for speed. Later on, you can go back and be a perfectionist and try and get things cemented really well. Especially when making your memory system. So here I'm going into memory systems. It is something you pre-memorize to turn abstract data, like numbers and cards, into an image. I would say numbers 00 to 99 is the most important thing you should do. Try and make this really quick, in like an hour. I do it by categories. There's also the mage system if you want to look into the major system. But what I do is I say, for example, 00 to 09. In this case, it's like holiday stuff. Yeah, holiday figures. So you break up into categories like this, and then each one becomes its category. It's only 10 categories. You can use your family. Try and get more objects than people. Objects are much more memorable, much easier to fit together. And when you're putting two objects into a location, make one of them bigger. The first one should be bigger. It helps you keep track of the order. But yeah, you can make your own. You could just steal mine if you wanted to. That's fine. Like I said, this is a 2-digit one. This is good for like most people. Unless you're competing and you need real speed, 2-digit will serve you for the rest of your life. And it's not just numbers. It's not limited like that. You can memorize binary digits using the same system by turning the binary digits into numbers like this. So, for example, let's say you just decided that 010 was 8. Then you could memorize these numbers as 88. I do this with normal binary. And if you use a shadow system, you get an extra digit for free. You can watch my other video on that if you want to. Is this too small to see? Let me... Okay. This also can be translated to cards. So if you make the suit 1 digit and the value another digit, and if it's a king, queen card, like make an exception, then you basically get a card system for free. I was speaking to a girl recently about using music notes. So the way I was doing it, where say if I had A sharp G, then I'd basically pretend it was AG, turn it into numbers, so 1, 7. And then if there's a sharp on the left side with the A, put a 9. And if there's a sharp on the other side, if it was G sharp, put a 9 here. And then use my image for that. I was saying what she could do is take this 17, and then if the sharp is at the front, make the image for 17, which is Plankton, and he'd be drowning if it was at the beginning. And if it was just a G sharp, he'd be on fire. And for completeness sake, if it was just AG, there'd be no modifier. Modifiers usually don't work, I will say. They're very tricky because you'll end up getting lots of repeats. The only time I've used them effectively was in card counting. So you pre-memorize a deck in new deck order. And then when a card comes up, you imagine it being set on fire, like that image being set on fire. And that means it's been dealt from the pack, it's been burned. And then what's left at the end, the things that aren't burned, is what's left in the deck. So you can use that for card counting. That's the only time I've used modifiers successfully. But I think for her purposes, that kind of modifying images to get the notes does make sense. So yeah, you get a lot of things for free when you make one of these. Try and make it really fast, like an hour, 2 hours tops. Just make it really quick. The hard part is learning it. And to learn it, you can practice with something I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so this is just using it, working out how much space you need in your locations. So when it comes to loci, you can make them up as you go along. In terms of places you've been, I was once asked to memorize 100 objects, and I just didn't have the mind palaces for that. So I just started remembering places I'd lived and friends' houses I'd visited, and started putting the images into those as I was going. I was making the mind palace while making the images as they were being read out to me, which sounds really hard and complicated, but after like maybe a few months of doing mind palace work, it becomes very natural. It's like you can't memorize something without using a mind palace. I mean, that's not technically true, but it's very natural to just stick something into a mind palace. You can use your body as a mind palace for quick notes. How to improve. So when you finish this beginning stage, you should try and memorize a deck of cards in under 10 minutes at least, more like under 5 minutes. Memorize 100 random digits in under 10 minutes. And to do that, you can use my memory training software, which you can go to this link. I have it in the description. You can download it. If you want a pre-compiled binary, I think there's one on my website. And this makes some very useful mental training software. I'll just show some of the features. So you can memorize, so you can specify numbers, how many you want, length of time, binary digits, how many you want, length of time, cards. Constants is like pi, e, digits of those things, and a custom one. You can memorize other countries and then quiz yourself on countries, elements, primes. One's missing from here, which is cities, like UK cities. Day of the week is an interesting one. I'll come back to that. Then you can do normal mental training, like arithmetic with the calculator, powers, and routing. And then these are blindfold chess skills. If you can do these, you can play blindfold chess. This is a game. And bear in mind, it'll just be telling you coordinates. So if I just show you it visually first, let's go to the board editor, clear it out. So randomly drop a knight and a queen on a board, and it will tell you the starting squares of both. You have to move the knight to eat the queen, but you can't get in the way of the queen. So for example, you couldn't go here because the queen would see you and you would lose. This knight's tour is where you need to move the knight to every square on the chessboard exactly once, but you can't cross over yourself, so you can never you couldn't go here because you've already been there. So you want to touch every square exactly once. It'll give you a starting square. Chess squares, they will just say a random coordinate like d1, and you have to say the color. Day of the week, that will give you a random date. So I want the mode to be day of the week. Let's clear it. So you see that gives you a random date, and you have to say the day of the week. Now I do use a mind palace for this. For these two numbers here, that's also on my blog. If I go down to date, I use the same kind of thumbnail. This here gives you the bit that you need to put into a mind palace. Okay, here's an example of the day of the week. So that's quite an easy one. 1 is just 1. So this basically cancels out and becomes 0. That's a -1 as well, so it's going to become Sunday. Yep. Here we have 580. So that would be a blogger. I think that becomes 2. That is nothing. That's a 3, so it makes a 5. That's a 2, so it should be a Sunday. And I can type it in any which way. I can type in Sun, Sunday. So that's the same thing. Okay, so that is the Subtlest Mental Trainer. You can use this to, for example, practice your numbers. Like if I do mode numbers, and you can say you want to do 100 of them. And the length of time is in seconds, so you can say, oh, I want to do it in, say, like 10 minutes. And it will show you 100 of them. You get 10 minutes to memorize it. And then at the end, it will ask you to type them in. Just to show you real quick, also, I didn't mean to add to be a -A. There we go. You saw it default there, so if there's just no parameters at all, it defaults to being 30. I thought that was a bit low. So yeah, it shows 100 numbers, gives you 10 minutes to memorize them. Just to show you how it works, if I make it only 3 digits in 1 second, so 644, and it says, well, you got it right. This time I'm going to get one of them wrong, so I'm going to say 928. and it shows you where you got it wrong. And you can actually change how it splits them. So I've put 10 here because it splits it in chunks of 6 for me. Whoops. It splits it into a chunk of 6 for me. You can change how you want it to chunk. Anyway, that's a bit of a plug for the software I've made. Yeah,